You're taking a look inside Kansas politics. Welcome in. I'm Denisha Richard. For the new year, we are taking a look into state and national news today. Starting off, Governor Kelly says goodbye to TikTok on state-owned devices. The order in response to the national and privacy risk posed by TikToks. Leaders with the Kelly administration say the social media giant's parent company is subject to Chinese government requests for data, technology, and other intellectual property. The order does not include several state offices, including the Board of Regents, Office of Attorney General, Secretary of State, and others. Kelly does say she encourages other state entities to do the same, saying she, quote, is taking common sense steps to protect Kansans' privacy and security. Meanwhile, Governor Kelly also announced more funds to help curb exposure to drugs in Kansas children. Earlier this week, the governor announced the Kansas Department of Health will receive about $3 million in federal funds to help identify and support children exposed to drugs, increase public safety, and reduce overdose death. Over 140,000 children in the state live in environments where substance abuse is present. Officials say drug-endangered children are more likely to develop chronic disease, suffer from substance abuse, among other challenges. After serving over a decade, the Kansas State Fire Marshal is set to retire. Doug Jorgensen announced earlier this week. He served 11 years, serving all the Brownback and Collier administrations. Jorgensen calls his time as fire marshal a, quote, rewarding career. He is one of the several Kelly administrative leads to step down or retire before the governor begins her second term. Leaders with TC Energy say the Keystone Pipeline is set to reopen. It will reopen. The energy company made the announcement on Thursday, about 3 weeks after a spill dumped 14,000 barrels of crude oil into a local creek. They say the required repairs, inspections, and testing will allow for a controlled restart of a portion of the pipeline that closed down. The December 7th spill sparked outrage among some Kansas legislators, some who called for what they say should be stronger pipeline regulations. Well, census data shows only hundreds of people left the state this year. New census figures released just before Christmas showed that Kansas lost 772 people from July 1st, 2021 through July 1st, 2022. The states that showed the most growth was states including California, among several southeastern states. Charges were dismissed after the family of a Hayes man with terminal cancer says police raided his hospital room after staff caught the patient using THC-infused products. Now family members say it's time for more compassion when it comes to the debate on medical marijuana.
Kansas really needs to legalize medical marijuana, and help people who actually need it.
Shock and outrage following an incident involving police and a patient at Hayes Medical Center. Hayes Police Chief Don Scheibler says on December 19th, officers were called to the hospital after staff caught 69-year-old Greg Bretz using THC products in his hospital room.
They were concerned about the potential fire hazard, and more importantly, and they were also concerned about how it made him feel sick.
Brett's son, Lee, says his father is terminally ill, his cancer inoperable.
So the chemo hadn't been too kind to him. So he's been exploring some other options, and it seemed to be helping him out a little bit. But that all went south when he got turned in by one of the hospital staff.
The hospital confiscated those products before turning them over to police. Although Bretz was not arrested, he was issued a ticket.
The officer was leaving the building. He didn't feel comfortable writing the ticket. That day, the officer sent an email to the city prosecutor requesting that the charge be dismissed.
That charge was dismissed 8 days later, but Brett's son says it's not enough.
Well, it makes me feel good, but that still don't stop the fact that the damage is done to him. We just want our best for our loved ones is all we want,
Chief Scheibler says while the conversation surrounding medical marijuana must continue, he emphasizes the officers involved acted in accordance with state and city law.
We shouldn't have laws on the books that we don't want enforced. And if we want us to be compassionate, we want us to help people, we have to address this issue in some fashion.
Of course, we know that medical marijuana will be debated again in the 2023 legislature. And of course, Inside Kansas Politics will be following all of those updates. Well, Schmidt wraps up his term as Attorney General. He gives us a rundown on his accomplishments for the state of Kansas and what he would like to see from his successor. That's when we come back. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
The battle for the AFC North is coming down to the wire, and Baltimore has eyes on the prize, but standing in their way is an old rival with something to prove. Steelers, Ravens, on NBC and streaming on Peacock.
We've invited everyone who either won the show or nearly won the show. It's the best of the best versus the best.
Too much for me to handle. It's so good.
Weekdays at 11 on 27 KSNT.
Hi, I'm Smokey Bear, and I made an assistant to help you out, because only you can prevent wildfires.
Hey, Assistant Smokey Bear. Call me Papa Bear, because I'm grilling up dinner. Do you get it?
Yes, good job.
So, what should I do with all these coals?
Don't just toss them out. Put them in a metal container because those embers can start a wildfire.
I understand. The stakes are high.
Ha, 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 ha.
See, Smokey thinks I'm funny.
Everybody, I don't care who you are, loves animals. And it's almost like they feel as if the Topeka Zoo animals are part of their family. They just inspire people. I think zoos are so important for so many reasons. They get to see these incredible animals that nobody gets to see.
I come back because I get to have a relationship with my kids in the most natural setting with animals that they love right here in our own town.
Welcome back to Inside Kansas Politics. I'm Denisha Richard. The state's top cop has sat down for a television interview before leaving office. Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt opened up about his next steps, as well as addressing some unfinished business. Schmidt spoke with our Capitol Bureau reporter Rebecca Chung, and Schmidt has had a long run as the Kansas Attorney General. He says he doesn't know what's next. Take a look.
Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt is leaving office after serving 11 years as the state's top cop.
We've recovered about $1.1 billion for Kansas consumers and taxpayers. And if you add the opioid money to that is coming, that'll be closer to $1.5 billion.
Millions of dollars have gone into running the office, entering lawsuits that Schmidt says are worth the investment.
Several of our opioid lawsuits have been resolved, and I think one or two more probably will be. That will leave close to $350 million available for Kansas over the next decade and a half to deal with addiction issues.
Still, he's tying up some loose ends before he goes. It includes a price gouging investigation from last year's winter storm. A natural gas spike during the cold snap impacted areas across the Midwest, driving up energy costs to record highs. Investigators are still looking into whether price gouging was involved.
We have retained one of the largest law firms in the United States, Morgan & Morgan, which is assisting us with that investigation. I filed an enforcement action on a subpoena right before the election. We've got some targets in that investigation that have resisted our efforts to get the information we need, but it's proceeding, and we'll hand off that investigation full bore to the next administration.
Come January, Chris Kobach will be taking over the Attorney General's seat. Schmidt's advice: leave the office better than you found it.
One of the things I'm most proud of is we've been able to really shore up, fix, and repair a lot of programs that are supposed to be run by the AG's office that hadn't been updated for many years. We've worked with the legislature to put good legal authorities in place. I hope that that'll be a North Star for everybody who comes after for generations to come.
And that was Rebecca Chung reporting. Coming up, we are going to take a look at national news. Stay with us. You're watching Inside Kansas Politics.
Kansas Association of Broadcasters Best Prime Newscast, 2 years in a row. 27 News, working for you.
It's showtime!
too much for me to handle. It's so good.
Weekdays at 11 on 27 KSNT.
The stories you need to know.
They just ripped the ATM out of the wall.
The stories that change the way you think.
Were you trying to rip me off?
It's one big party.
Inside Edition.
These are the stories that impact your life.
Weekdays at 2 on 27 KSNT.
In America, millions of families are facing hunger. Some are forced to choose between food and other necessities. I still have to pay my mortgage, insurance, and other bills. That makes it hard to afford food. Francine from Georgia. There are still times when I don't have money for food and I have nothing to give my daughter. I've skipped meals so that she can eat. Elena from Arizona. The Feeding America network of food banks helps provide over 6 billion meals to people in need each year. I only have $10 in my checking account, but it will be okay. I at least have food because of this pantry. Donna from Washington. Now I no longer have to worry about going hungry. Diane from Michigan. No one should have to worry where their next meal will come from. Together, we can end hunger. Learn more at feedingamerica.org.
Welcome back. A new session of Congress will start in the new year, this time with a different power dynamic. And lawmakers already have big plans. Washington correspondent Hannah Brandt gives us a look at their top priorities.
Lawmakers returned to the Capitol on Tuesday with a long to-do list and a new Republican majority.
I believe the American people put us in the majority on the House to deal with the immigration crises.
But Congressman Greg Steube says the first task for the House will be choosing a speaker.
Then the conference is going to have to figure that out before we start business.
Congressman Kevin McCarthy is fighting for the spot, but he doesn't have enough votes yet. The Republican majority will also control House committees and their investigations, and have said they want to use them to crack down on the Biden administration. Even in the minority, Congressman Don Beyer says Democrats still have important responsibilities in the House.
To try to be that alternative voice, always looking for win-win situations that help the American people.
Democrats will still control the Senate and the White House, so Republicans will have to work across party lines to get legislation passed and signed into law.
You have to be realistic, but it would be foolish to give up on finding a path on some bipartisan pieces of legislation.
Senator Tim Kaine points out the last Congress passed bipartisan legislation on infrastructure, gun control, and computer chips. And he thinks there are more areas where both parties can come together.
What about mental health? What about substance use disorders and opioid addiction? What about long COVID?
Though some priorities will be left behind.
I don't think either party is going to be able to get anything that are out on the edges, but there'll be many, many things in the middle that we do together.
And the work to find that middle ground starts next week. In Washington, I'm Hannah Brandt.
In other national news, President Joe Biden approved a limited TikTok ban on Thursday. The ban, which is part of a 4,126-page spending bill, prohibits the use of TikTok by the federal government's nearly 4 million employees on devices owned by its agencies, with limited exceptions for law enforcement, national security, and security research purposes. The ban comes after a wave of actions against the viral video app in recent weeks amid mounting security concerns raised by media reports, China hawks, and politicians. The renewed pressure on the app under the Biden administration comes 2 years after a proposed ban by then-President Trump was stopped in court. However, an actual U.S. ban of the app for all citizens, well, that still remains unlikely. 6 years of former President Donald Trump's tax returns were released on Friday by the House Ways and Means Committee. The returns are expected to provide an in-depth look at Trump's finances while he served as president. A summary of the returns was released by the committee earlier this month and showed Trump declared negative income in 2015, 16, 17, and 20. In 2016 and 17, he paid $1,500 of income tax. The release of the former president's tax returns are the culmination of a long legal battle between the House Ways and Means Committee and former President Donald Trump. That struggle began back in 2019 when the committee sought Trump's tax records and did not end until the legal fight reached the Supreme Court. Other presidents have routinely made tax records public since the 1970s, but President Trump's refusal to release the information ignited suspicion about what they may show about his personal finances. Democratic Governor-elect Katie Hobbs has filed for sanctions against her GOP 2022 GOP opponent, Kari Lake. The request comes less than 48 hours after a judge ruled against Lake's efforts to have her self-declared governor-elect. Hobbs and Maricopa County filed for the sanctions on Monday. Hobbs and the county are seeking a little more than $25,000 from Lake. That figure includes attorney fees for the state's most populous county in Hobbs. In the filing, the county took aim at Lake's remarks before the election, indicating she would not accept the results unless she won. As we get into the new year, there are new concerns about COVID-19 starting next Thursday. The U.S. will require a negative COVID test from travelers coming from China. Now, this will begin on January 5th, and the U.S. will then require proof of a negative COVID test from anyone flying from China. That's regardless of nationality or vaccination status. This latest travel requirement comes as COVID patients fill up China's emergency rooms. China eased its zero COVID policy earlier this month following mass protests against restrictions. There are fears the virus could spread from overseas to the U.S., where cases are already in the rise in the past 2 weeks. COVID-19 cases have increased 19% nationwide, with 3 Omicron subvariants making up nearly 90% of cases across New England. Doctors warn outbreaks are expected to get worse in the coming weeks. The surge in COVID cases is part of a triple-demic, and medical professionals are grappling with other respiratory viruses, including the flu and RSV. Health officials urge caution as people prepare to get together as we have celebrated the holiday seasons and beyond. Well, Title 42, the immigration policy allowing asylum seekers to be turned away at the border, it will remain in place for now. The Supreme Court voted 5-4 to grant an emergency request by 19 states who sought to prevent Title 42 from expiring. That decision puts a hold on ruling by a Washington-based district judge that would have ended the immigration policy last week. Inadverts say many had predicted would be an additional surge in people seeking asylum in the U.S. The Supreme Court's order says that while the administration cannot set aside the policy, the decision, quote, does not prevent the federal government from taking any action with respect to that policy. The justices also agreed to hear oral arguments in February and rule on whether the states can intervene, with a decision due by the end of June. Title 42 was invoked during the Trump presidency when the COVID-19 pandemic broke out, giving the federal government power to take emergency action to keep diseases out of the country. So far, more than 2 million people have been expelled at the border as a result. Meanwhile, a congressional investigation has found the FDA failed to follow its own practices during the approval process for an Alzheimer's drug. The report released earlier today says the FDA's atypical collaboration to approve the costly drug was rife with irregularities. 2 House committees investigated the FDA's actions for 18 months. The investigation found the drug's maker, Biogen, set an unjustifiably high price for the drug to, quote, make history for the company. Biogen is also accused of using the drug as an unprecedented financial opportunity with a price tag of $56,000 per year. The report found the drug's effects on a broad segment of the patient population were not even known. Federal prosecutors in New York have opened up an investigation into Rep-elect George Santos. The probe by federal prosecutors is over Santos's congressional campaign, making for at least the second investigation into the newly elected Republican, who acknowledged earlier this week that he'd fabricated and embellished several claims about his background involving education and work history. Prosecutors are examining Santos's finances, including potential irregularities involving financial disclosures and loans he made to his campaign while running for Congress. Now, despite the early investigation having not zeroed in on any one allegation. 2 months after the attack on Paul Pelosi, David DePape, the suspect charged with attempted murder, pled not guilty in a San Francisco courtroom earlier in the week. He entered a not guilty plea denying all allegations to the October assault on 82-year-old Pelosi during a second arraignment in the high-profile case. He replied yes when the judge asked him if he waives his rights to a speedy trial. and is facing additional charges including first-degree residential burglary, elder abuse, assault with a deadly weapon, false imprisonment, and threatening a family member of a public official. The Pelosi's daughter, Christine, ended the proceeding but did not provide any comments. DePape is currently being held without bail and expected to start trial in the new year. He's due back in court on February 8th on a status update, as well as February 23rd to begin his trial for his state case. The Minnesota Attorney General's office announced former Minneapolis police officer Justin Stetson will face assault charges for his alleged use of force against Jaleel Stallings and the 2020 arrest that followed the murder of George Floyd. Danny Spawak reports.
On the fourth night of riots following the murder of George Floyd, body camera video shows MPD officers in an unmarked SWAT van firing rubber bullets at people out past curfew on Lake Street. At one point, the video shows someone returning fire with a gun. The man who returned fire, a legal gun owner named Jaleel Stallings, was initially charged with felonies, including attempted murder, but a jury acquitted him, arguing he acted in self-defense because he didn't know that the people shooting rubber bullets were police officers. Here's Stallings explaining.
I heard what to me sounded like a gunshot, felt an extremely hard impact, hit my chest, which at the time, based on what was going on, I assumed was a bullet.
When Stallings says he realized it was police, surveillance video shows him laying down to surrender. Next, prosecutors identify former officer Justin Stetson as the person seen kicking Stallings while he's on the ground. The AG's office has now charged Stetson with third-degree assault, alleging that he kicked, punched, and slammed Stallings' head on the pavement. The AG's law enforcement expert found that Stetson's use of force was, quote, unreasonable, excessive, and contrary to generally accepted police practice.
We definitely welcome the Attorney General's decision to charge.
Jaylani Hussein with the Council on American Islamic Relations has led calls for accountability in this case for months.
Third-degree charge here is appropriate. Obviously, we could charge more, but I think it also shows that we do need independent prosecution.
Stallings got a $1.5 million settlement from the city last year, but his attorney says they don't have a comment yet on the charge against Stetson.
Well, Kansans will see a lower tax on their grocery bill. Straight ahead, what shoppers can expect beginning next year. That's when we come back on Inside Kansas Politics.
At Hardee's, no matter what you choose, it's the right choice. Because our new 4 for $6 deal lets you make your own combo. Mix and match, then feast or snack on the food you're craving, all for just $6. Combine your favorite flavors into the perfect deal with our new 4 for $6 menu, only at Hardee's.
Why should you choose Renewal by Andersen replacement windows? A variety of beautiful colors, a wide selection of hardware, and many window styles are just a few of the reasons to consider Renewal by Andersen.
At Andersen, everything we do is custom. You know, Andersen is big on innovation, it's big on technology.
I believe we have the best product in the industry. People expect the best, right? So if you want something that's going to last a long time, you're going to look at what's best, maybe not what's the cheapest. And our customers know that going in, I believe, and they expect that, and we provide that.
Renewal by Andersen focuses on value, which means high quality for a fair price.
For a limited time only, buy 5 windows, save $1,500. Buy 9 windows, save $3,000, or choose 2.99% financing.
Choose energy efficiency, choose durability, choose Renewal by Andersen.
Hey, you. It's that time of year again.
Football, baby!
When it's okay to get a little carried away for football. To feel all the Week 18 feels for football. It's okay to do this, or even that.
I don't know what that is.
And it's definitely okay to get wild on Wild Card Monday. So if you want to waddle, sauce, chase, and cheese, it's all okay. Why? Because this is playoff season.
Nothing tastes better than savings. Hardee's new 4 for $6 deal lets you mix and match your favorite flavors. That's sweet, savory, crispy, crunchy, or beefy, all for just $6. Create your favorite combinations with our new 4 for $6 deal, only at Hardee's.
Welcome back. A House bill passed earlier this year will reduce the sales tax rate on many items at the grocery store. Max Dutton has more on what Kansans can expect to see.
Kansans are letting out a sigh of relief. Currently, Kansas has the second highest sales tax rate on food in the entire country. House Bill 2106 will eliminate that state sales tax on groceries by 2025. Washburn economy professor Paul Byrne told our David George that the reduction is a win-win for Kansas.
Well, it'll certainly help the grocery store industry. People will buy more in that industry, so that industry will be better. To the extent which people don't buy more food, it'll be a little more dollars in their pocket.
Donis Wade has been working at Wiener's Thriftway for 21 years.
I've seen a lot of changes over the years, from size of items, price of items, taxes on items.
Tax rate changes aren't anything new for grocery stores, but Wiener's had to prep for this one.
We've prepared ahead of time. Our IT guy has made sure that all our items are in the computer under the proper category.
The categories are important. Foods that do qualify are basic grocery items, including milk, eggs, bread, and meat. Bottled water, soft drinks, candy, and dietary supplements also make the cut. Not everything in the grocery store applies. When you add alcohol into your shopping cart, don't expect that tax rate to drop. On top of that, prepared foods like you find at restaurants and tobacco will continue to be taxed. 2 days out from the tax rate reduction, Donis leaves us with a message for shoppers.
Shop local, support your community. That's what we're all about here in Silver Lake.
All right, that was Max Dutton reporting, and thank you for watching Inside Kansas Politics. Of course, we will be here throughout the whole year, and we'll be glad for you to join us every Sunday. If you want to keep up to date on all things Kansas politics, follow us on social media. You can follow us on Twitter at @InKansasPolitics, and we'll also post the full video on YouTube. All you have to do is search KSNT News and check ksnt.com/inside-kansas-politics for the past episodes. Kansas legislature is starting soon. If you have a story you want Kansas state legislators to hear, be sure to let us know. Of course, we'll see you right here, same time, same place. Have a great Sunday. We'll see you next week.